Hey everyone, Zowie here from Systematic Mastery. In this episode, Niels and me are trying something new. We dub it Systematic Sparring. We're going to try and spar basically, on the systems that we incorporate in our daily lives to try and help each other uncover certain faults or improvement points that we can have based on the experience of the other person. Now, as you may know, Systematic Mastery's philosophy is that systems and the sustaining systems in our lives are basically the path to individual freedom. Not freedom in the sense of I'm free from, but I'm free to. We feel that freedom is very reliant on committing to a particular sustainable and balancing and self-improvement kind of system that we can incorporate in our lives. This is a very broad thing. But we also feel that to reach that level, we need each other. We need each other's support, we need each other's feedback, and also criticism. And that's why we came up with a systematic sparring session. Niels and me don't see each other often. We're often in different countries and also different continents. And we feel that the best way for us to keep each other accountable and still support each other in our journey while running this podcast and our businesses is to do something like this on a more frequent basis. So here we go. If you have any feedback, please let us know. And I hope you enjoy this video. Hey man, how you doing?
Great, I'm doing just fine. Long time no see, Zowie.
Long time no see. Well, definitely long time no deep chat, I think, especially not a recorded one. So as we discussed, we are running the channel now already for a while, and we recently kind of completely discovered our own passion for explaining other people what we do with our personal knowledge management systems. And so far, that's been extremely fun for us to do. But we started this channel, of course, to also uncover a lot of other systematic aspects of our lives and improve there. And as that's something that we've always been doing in the background in our personal lives, we realized that this is something we want to bring forward more in the channel. And we are constantly challenging ourselves to improve our systems, but we don't really discuss them nearly as often as we usually did and as we could, because we're basically always on different parts of the world, right? I mean, for a while I was living in Portugal, you were in South Africa, now I'm in London, now you're in the Netherlands, and this will probably keep going exactly like this. So we figured, why not also add to what we are doing with Systematic Mastery by having accountability conversations together to basically do a systematic sparring session, as we call it, to challenge each other and attack each other on the systems that we have and see how we can help each other improve there. So it's going to be moderately gentle, I think, but we'll definitely find some points where I think we're trying to find holes in each other's systems and see how we get there. What do you say? Shall we immediately dive into some of the systems that we're having?
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, I think I want to add, it's also about some problems I've encountered myself with my own setup. So perhaps you have, a fresh perspective on those things. So I can, I've watched a lot of your videos recently in Obsidian, and I'm like, wow, there's some value here. So perhaps you can, enlighten me with your currently acquired knowledge.
Yeah, let's hope so. I'm looking forward to kind of. Honestly, I've seen a couple of things in your system where I think like, oh man,
I had the same with yours. Like, well,
exactly.
Okay.
And I would love to like. There's definitely some struggles that I'm dealing with as well when it comes to time management. I recently did a fast, so those are all topics that in future chats we can dive into, and you can kind of grill me on the things that I should be improving based on your experience and your insights. So, tell me, what is a system that you have right now, and where do you see the cracks yourself?
Yeah, so I think this ties in perfectly with your recent video on Readwise. I am reading a lot of books lately, and for me, the part of integrating that knowledge, that really is lacking. So, for example, this book I'm reading, just finished it, have a ton of notes, like, highlights everywhere in the book. I think, at least 60, 70 notes. But now my pain is that I have to sit down at the end of the day or on Sunday to then type all those notes over or out in Notion or in my note-taking system. And I know what you're going to say. I know you're going to hate me for this, but my system is just not fully ready for digesting that note. It can be way more efficient, and I know that there are digital solutions for this, but this is a bit my problem. I've noticed within myself in my own setup that as soon as I start reading on a Kindle or an iPad, or digitally, or in a phone or whatever, the joy of reading for me is diminished. So I am not as fast reaching out for a book. I really am a book lover, so I want to have the book with me in my bag, and just if I go to the park, just have the book really. And I know this can be replaced by an e-reader, for example, but I'm just not doing it. And I'm also a big believer in that you have to make things fun for yourself, and you have to reward yourself for it. And for me, when I use an e-reader, I don't have that enjoyment. That's not really there. While with the actual book, I do have that. So I kind of have to balance the two, right? So where do I start? What is your take on this?
I see. I mean, the problem, I think, is maybe you don't realize how damaging it is not to remember or not to be able to take all those notes and highlights. Because I feel that, do you always systematically, every single book that you read and you highlight in, do you always put it in your second brain? Or is this something that you've actually never really done and are slowly starting with and now facing the challenge of?
No, I always do that. But having said that, I have read many books before the whole second brain and productivity system quest, so to speak. So there are still, I think, at least a dozen books in my bookshelf that have highlights in them, but there, it's nowhere. It's just in the book. So I didn't integrate this within my second brain, and this really ties into also the typology episodes that we did on personality, and I want to dive into that in a upcoming video way deeper. But for me, that is really something hard. I am not enjoying the accounting part of things, so I am not really looking forward to sit down for an entire day and to get all my past read books and then getting the notes out of there. That's something I do not like to do. So yeah, the notes are in the books, but I want to get them into my system.
See, I mean, for those people out there that are similar to us, because I have the same problem, I hate the accounting part. I think in my life, and I have been second braining, kind of note taking for 2.5 to 3 years now, and like sophisticated second braining has been a little bit over, I think, a year to 1.5. And I think I did one book where I used kind of traditional reading systems, like with notes in the margins and highlights, and was actually able to kind of put all of those in my Obsidian note-taking system. And it cost me a whole day, like a full day to do. And it was horrible. It was a horrible experience. I never want to do it again. It was actually Flo from Csikszentmihalyi. And I also had willpower, and I completely failed to actually put that like in my second brain, or at least I got halfway. And for those out there that also have this problem where they have to sit for a long time and do this administrative work, what works for me, and that's, I think, one of the massive advantages of the system that I have now with Readwise, is that you have to do it in small increments. So rather than like one big sit down, the small increments really, really help. So it does mean that you can probably find, and you probably should start experimenting. And this is, I think, the key that you have to start working on. You have to experiment with what works for you, because my system will probably not work exactly the same as it does for you. And I also read in physical books. So I would say do everything in small increments. If you read on one day, make sure plan to read one chapter if you set goals like that, and then immediately put the chapter in your second brain. Or start using Readwise, because Readwise has a feature that I highlighted in the last video I released, where you can make a picture of a page in the book, and it will actually use optical character recognition. So it will extract the text from the book, from the page, and you can put that in a highlight in your Readwise. I do this all the time when I read, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I think it takes me 5 to 10 seconds per highlight if I put it in. Okay. It's totally worth it if you are reading a physical book.
Okay, so I'm instantly thinking that sounds super cool and very nice, but then I have to take a shit ton of pictures, basically, of all the books. Yeah. And I have to, how does this work? Do you make a picture and then you have to select some text, and then I assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a small walkthrough on their website on how it works. But basically, imagine you're sitting on the couch or you're sitting in the park and you're reading a book. Grab out your phone, take a picture of the page, and then it allows you to select the text that it analyzed, just graphically, so you can kind of move the things around on your screen, and then you just click next, and then from that point on, you have the highlight, and you can select the book that it belongs to, and then you're done.
Yeah, and that works quite fluently.
It works fluently. It's accurate 90% of the time. Sometimes it misses a few letters if you don't take the picture right, but the quality of the character recognition is really, really high. I have no complaints. However, have you tried reading digitally? Like, have you ever bought an e-reader and then put it away?
Yeah. I have read on a Kindle for like 1 full week when I was on holiday, and it works. It's not that I can't do it. Of course, this is first world problems, I would say, but I just noticed that I by nature gravitate way more towards physical books, and I also enjoy buying physical books, and I enjoy having them on my bookshelf. It's also more maybe an aesthetic thing. Like I know that the books are there, and I love to to get them and to read through them, and even books I've already read. And if they're just data on my device somewhere, I don't have that experience. Maybe I'm very old school in that regard, but
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
There's
you're right.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I don't know if you can see it, you can, but there's a bookcase here as well. So I do have my physical books, and it's because the special thing about books is you develop a relationship with them, right? Do you also feel that, like, when you look at the book, you get like the story back and you want to hold it again as like, memory lane kind of.
Yeah.
This is gone when you have digital books. Absolutely gone. On the other hand, so I personally, I was struggling with exactly the same thing. I think if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I said exactly what you're saying right now. So I tried to use a Kindle or an e-reader, and I tried to read digitally in PDFs. And I thought, well, that's great because it's going to help me improve my system because I can make notes and all that. And I quit. And after I realized that what I should do is I don't have to, it's not one or the other. You don't have to destroy the relationship you have with books right now to do it digitally, to read digitally. What I do is it costs a little bit more money, but I sometimes buy books both physically and digitally. And then I read it digitally most of the time, but I will have the physical book still represents what I read digitally, right? So Tao Te Ching, such a meaningful book. I have it on audiobook, I have it digitally, and I have it physically. I'm fine with spending 3 times as much because it's not an expensive book, and you still have that relationship with the book, right? So there's some books out there that you should, I think, do that with, and then you don't have to sacrifice that relationship.
Okay, that could work. So you're buying the physical book and also the digital version, and then, but still, you're primarily consuming the book digitally.
Yes, yeah. So what I will do is, I mean, it depends. If I go out for a walk and I want to read in the park a little bit, I don't know why, but I prefer a physical book. So then chances are I will take the physical book. Also some like books about stoicism. I don't know why. I think philosophy books I prefer to read physically. It's kind of this weird, I guess it's a relationship with books that really does it there. And then I will just take that one to the park and I'll make a picture of it. And if I want to revisit something quickly, like I'm in the train and I want to revisit a particular passage, then actually it's quite nice to have it digitally. So I just open Kindle and I read the book there because I just want to get into my brain really fast. So I think you can use those tools to your advantage.
Yeah, I believe, or I think that the best practice here is, if I hear you talk about this, is to do it every time that you read, because then it's only a very small sacrifice each time that you do it. For instance, like I don't often read more than 20 pages in one sitting. I go through 20 pages and that's it. I go read a bit back, but that's it. To just make 20 pictures then after that one session, that's fine. And if that instantly syncs to my Notion or my second brain, that's perfect. I'm perfectly willing to take 1 minute time for that each time. I'm just now at the point in time that I have so much books piled up that I just see this massive mountain of books that I think, man, I have to put these all into Notion, type them out, but I can also now make a picture. That's awesome. I did this with meditations just a few months ago. That's one of our favorite books, I think, also of you.
Yeah.
And I had so many notes, and it took me like 4 or 5 hours just to make take all the notes from the book into Notions. I was like, man, this is horrible.
It's suffering.
And that's my second question. And I think that's also where your reading system can assist in. You can then use that to remember the things that you've read better. And you actually made a video about this. I think we can, post that here somewhere. Never forget what you read, or always how to remember what you read. How does that work? Because I also feel that that's a struggle within my system. For instance, when I was, typing out meditations, there were so many parts in there, so many highlights, that I thought, yeah, this is a great highlight. I totally forgot that he even said this thing, right? So how does that work? How do you use this system to, to remember what you read?
Yeah, the value for me really is in, from a personal perspective at least, what I believe is we all have the ability to change our brain and to change ourselves. However, to do such a thing, we need a lot of exposure with how we want to change ourselves. So similar to our muscles, like I think it's a perfect example. You can go to the gym and train for 2 months if you're untrained, and then you will see some results, but you will never get to like a really sophisticated level, and also you won't more durably change your body. But if you train for 3 years straight, your body is going through so many massive changes. Your metabolism changes, your mind will change, your emotional experience will change. You're really fundamentally changing part of your nervous system in a way. And I feel that the same goes for books. So if I read the meditations and I'm heavily inspired by it, as I was, and I imagine you too, and many others in the world, that will be a very ephemeral inspiration. It will last for, say, a month or two. And then what will happen? It will die out. Maybe I'll have a couple of insights that come back into my life. But what I really want from this book, I want this thing to like be soaked up into my brain so deeply that I can completely integrate it into my life. And I feel that to do that, you can do a few things. You can reread the book every half year or every year. But what you can also do, and this is where Readwise perfectly comes in, you can actually put all those highlights in Readwise, tag them with Stoicism, and every single day, there's a chance, say 10, 20%, that you'll get a meaningful highlight for yourself from the meditations in your daily review. And that's a perfect way to kind of stimulate your brain to really soak up the information. And I think you can see very big lasting change in your life that way. I really believe that it's more than just remembering. It's also really psychological change and healing maybe even. So yeah, that's what I do. And you can remember everything you read really, really perfectly. And you can configure everything in Readwise, which I recommend you to watch one of the videos I made.
I watched them, but I'm more skimming them. So anyway,
thanks.
No, I always watch them with my full awareness. I love the video, Zowie. No, so I get that, and I think this ties in also with our psychedelic experiences, that you get so much knowledge. It's almost like reading a book in some regards, but it's more about the integration then, and it's about taking the actual knowledge from the experience from reading the book and then integrating that also in your life. Because otherwise, you're just reading a lot, but you're not actually applying the newly acquired wisdom, right? So, okay, this sounds very, very powerful, but how does this Readwise then work? Do you go sit every day for 15 minutes or something and go through the highlights?
Yeah, so every single day, and you have to develop the habit, but it is rewarding because you'll get a streak. So there's a game element there. So you want to do it every day, because if you lose a day, then your streak is gone, and there's a leaderboard, so you'll be motivated to kind of compete a little bit.
So I can compete with you on Readwise.
Yeah. How consistent you are. Yeah. See the fire in your eyes.
Yeah. Okay. And you can pay them if you miss a streak, like Duolingo, right?
Oh, that would be cool. No, well, we can set up something like this, like a WhatsApp group with Readwise, and I would like something like this, like accountability.
It's such a smart business model with Duolingo. I had like a streak for, I think, 400 days a few years back, and then I missed one, and then it was like, oh, if you pay $20, then you get your streak back. I was like, and I did that a few times. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm paying to get my streak. It's such a psychological way, but okay, in Readwise you have a leaderboard. That's nice.
Yeah, I had no idea that this was possible. Yeah, I mean, I hope they don't do that, because I will probably end up paying to get my streak back at some point.
Yeah. It's such a nasty business model. But okay, it works.
Yeah. So, a question to you is, when you hear all this, because I know that this is something that you'll have to get out of a comfort zone, right? And like many others out there, to make this whole transition towards this digital reading system, it's gonna take a little bit of effort and some comfort zone struggles.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have an idea what the ideal first step might be, but where would you like to start? Like, how can you start with a small thing, because you don't have to overthrow your whole system immediately? What attracts you the most about this?
You mean where I would start with when implementing the system?
Yeah, when you hear all this, what's the first point where you think, oh yeah, I think I could do this. I think that's something I could start with in a small, simple way to help me get there.
Yeah, so what for me is important is to always, every task or every project, I have to separate in the smallest chunks possible, because I have always this, this fear of the project. It's so big. It's like, and then it's in my mind, it's so big that I don't even start. But to really, make it so small, every part of it, then it sounds very doable. So in this case already, it's the same here. I was like, oh, Zowie has this whole Readwise system and this reading system, but it will take me a lot of work, to even understand it and to get to implement it. But now what I hear is, okay, you can just download the app, take pictures of pages, and it already syncs with your second brain setup. So I would just start with downloading the app. That's, I think, the first step here. So I would actually make tasks of this. So I just, download the app. And then after my first reading session, I just take 10 pictures whatsoever, just implement them into Notion in my case, and do that for a while. Do that for maybe 1 week, 2 weeks. And if I see the value, if it's in my system, if I'm forming this habit, then I would probably have to do the harder work in getting all my old books and start taking pictures of those highlights, because I want to do it, or I can just hire some guy or someone to do that for me.
Oh yeah, Mechanical Turk kind of.
Yeah, but it's very it's very repetitive work, right? Just it's taking pictures of the of the book.
Yeah, it's a good point. I would say it sounds like a great idea. I think for the people out there that are hesitant to throw away their old reading system, and they don't want to lose all the kind of the relationship they have with books and the value out there, just start with like the simplest thing. Download the app. You'll get a 60-day free trial if you sign up through our referral link, but you can also just sign up. Yeah,
nice. Affiliate.
yeah, very good. 60 days, Niels. You can sign up as well.
We're 1,200 followers, and we get affiliate deals. This is getting big, man.
Yeah. Before you know it, we're Joe Rogan. So if you set up the Readwise app, just start with that and take a few pictures of books and hook it into your Notion or your Obsidian if you use that. I think one of the prerequisites though is to use one of those, unless you just want to remember what you read, and then you can just always use the daily review, right? So the fact that you have to open the app every day to go through your highlights is also a really great way to keep yourself engaged. And honestly, if you put the right highlights in there, I think that's also a trick. Don't put too much in there. Like, be very frugal with the amount of highlights you put in, because you want to capture the highest value possible in your Readwise app. It's okay to lose some information. That's fine, because you'll still have the book in your bookcase if you really want to, or in your digital bookcase.
Yeah. So you don't have to use Notion or Obsidian.
You don't have to, depending on what your goal is. We are second brain users, so for us, I think it's kind of a must to integrate it with those tools, which it now perfectly does. But for many people out there, I think the goal is also firstly to start with just putting some highlights at least in Readwise and reviewing those on a daily basis. You'll then already get the benefit of integrating it with your learning system and changing yourself. Then the next level, of course, is the second brain part, which you haven't really touched upon yet, and we can do that in one of the many videos that we'll release on this topic, where you can really change your brain. One of the many videos, where you basically can change your brain by thinking with the highlights you've made. That's like another layer on top of it. So you can create new thoughts and link your thinking, as many people call it, which I still would love to.
Like that.
I would love to push at some point in one of our systematic sparring sessions, see if we can get you to migrate to Obsidian, but that might take.
Well, if you remember correctly, I think we did episode 3 like last year was about reading and about how you read, and you then taught me that you can read multiple books at the same time. How do you call this again?
I don't remember how I call it.
Yeah, there was a specific term for it.
Oh, syntopical reading, maybe. I'm not sure.
I think that was it. So it doesn't really matter, but it's more. I had the mindset before of only reading one book at a time. I thought, hardcore introvert intuition mode, just go into depth into one topic. But then after that episode, I started to add a second book, a third book, and now I'm actually reading 7 books at the same time. And I have to admit, it's absolutely amazing. It's the best upgrade in my reading system, or just in my whole productivity system, that I could have, because I am linking so many unrelated ideas with each other that's just so powerful. It's really, really great.
Wow, that's cool to hear, man. I didn't know. This is epic. They were like a systematic level up. I've had many from the things that you shared in our conversations as well. So it's really cool to see like that we're also through the chat systematically leveling our own.
Yeah, it's good for our audience, our newly 1,200 subs, is that we actually don't even see each other that often, right? Like I think I've seen you in the last year maybe one time.
Yeah, maybe just 1, 2, or maybe 3 times, but that's it.